Welcome to Tales on the Towpath, the podcast where every mile tells a story.
We're two runners who spend a lot of time out here on the C&O Canal towpath, talking about training, racing, and everything that happens between the miles.
From early morning runs to the stories that keep us moving.
This is where endurance meets inspiration, one step, one tail at a time.
So lace up and join us on the path, because every trail has a story, and this one's ours.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm Adam Lowe.
And I'm Chris Earl.
And I'm Katie Lowe.
Hey, Chris, I know our listeners can't see the video, but I can see you still have a little post-race stubble going on your face there. Is that beard, the ultra beard, here to stay, or is that going to go away soon?
I'm still trying to figure that out. It's getting to that length where it's starting to get itchy. So today at work, it was really starting to bug me, but I left it. And we'll see. I did, don't tell anybody, but I did order a new trimmer. So we'll see if that makes it a little more tenable for me to keep it. But we'll see. Sooner or later, it'll end up in a photo, I'm sure, for the podcast.
Definitely. It looks good. You should keep it.
Thank you. Thank you. It does make me look older, though, because it brings out all the gray. So.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, normally you have no gray.
I know, right? Like because with the shave job and that, I look a lot younger without it. But we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
So, Adam, I was thinking today that it's been a pretty crazy week for running stories, and we haven't gotten to run together much because I've been recovering from the 100K, and you started tapering for Boston, and then left me all alone when you went to Boston. But there are some stories that I think we've got to talk about because they're pretty crazy. I don't know if you saw the article that came out after the Beijing half marathon, but apparently they had humanoid robots that ran the race alongside the human competitors. And no joke, they smashed the world record. The first robot finished in, get this, 50 minutes and 26 seconds, which is almost 7 minutes faster than the current world record of 57:20 set by Jacob Kiplimo. In case anybody's wondering, that's a 3:51 per mile pace.
Was it like it looked like a human, this robot did? Like it was as tall as a person or what?
Yeah, it didn't look like a mannequin or anything. It looked like what you would imagine a robot looks like.
Yeah, like if you've seen those robot dogs, it looked like the human version of that.
So like it ran, it wasn't like on
Yeah.
wheels.
Right,
Nope.
right.
It had legs and arms, and it was running in stride. And it even had to stop for an aid station at some point along the course. And I saw a video of it. They were changing the coolant out, and I think changing the battery on the front. So it even did an aid station and still ran that fast.
That's
So
unbelievable.
I only saw like the little blurb on Facebook about it, but I didn't read any articles or see anything extra. But my one question is, why? Why did they do that?
I don't know. I mean, probably just to be scary.
Okay.
Do you think the robots trained? Like did they put in like 60 to 70 mile weeks and all that stuff like we do, or they just showed up on race day and let it go?
I think they just showed up on race day.
Yeah, and I don't think they really needed to train their cardiovascular system or get their muscles primed to go, so they had a little bit of an advantage.
They were spraying down like all the joints with some kind of lubricant during the race to keep the friction down. So I thought that was cool too. But what's really impressive is this: they allowed the robots to run the year before in the Beijing half marathon. And a year ago, the fastest one was 2 hours and 40 minutes. So they took that much time off in 1 year. So who knows how fast they'll be next year.
Why?
Did they go first? Like did they give them their own wave? Or did they start with the people? Because that could be kind of dangerous, I would think, right? Like they're running that fast.
In the video I saw when they were in the aid station, you could see runners in the background on the course. So
Okay.
they must have been running, I think, either maybe on opposite sides of the street or something, but they were in the flow of the race.
I'll have to get up to date and watch those videos.
Well, now they'll be in your algorithm.
Oh yeah. That might be
Yeah.
worse. The other story I wanted to flag is I had a friend this week who sent this to me, and I had not heard about this before, but it's called the 888 Quest. Have you heard of this?
I have not.
I haven't either.
So we've all heard of the guys like Mike Wardian and some of the other marathoners who have done 7 marathons on 7 continents in 7 days. Well, the Triple Eight Quest is 8 marathons, 8 days, 8 continents. Geography quiz. Name the continents.
Well, there's not 8, right? There's only 7.
Maybe they are counting one continent more than once, or they're counting the moon or something.
Well, that would be impressive if they'd gone up on Artemis and run a marathon on the moon. But I did some research on this, and apparently there are scientists, geography scientists, geologists out there who have identified what they call the eighth continent, and it's called Zealandia. And 94% of this continent is underwater. And but the two parts that are above water are New Zealand and New Caledonia, which I wouldn't have been able to find New Caledonia on a map. But I know where New Zealand is, not that far from Australia, and they argue that it is its own separate continent, separate from Australia. And so in 2017, these guys got together and came up with this idea to do this to probably outdo, the 7 marathons on 7 continents in 7 days. And in 2018, the first woman, her name was, I had it right here, Celeste Bell, finished, and there was an article about that that a friend sent me. I wasn't tracking it, but I'm sure that certainly is something we would have talked about on the towpath.
Did you say in 2018?
2018, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, is that something you can just do? So you can just make a claim that there's an 8th continent and not like is this a Pluto isn't a planet, Pluto is a planet type thing? Or I don't quite understand.
I think you're
What's the
right.
official review process to determine whether there's an 8th continent? I have questions.
Yeah, this was the first I had ever heard of this, and so I was fascinated. But good on them for finding a new marketing ploy to do something different and outdo the seven continents, 7 marathons, 7 days people.
Well, Chris, you sent us that link about the eight marathons on 8 continents in 8 days, and I thought it was a joke. I thought you were saying, like, "How silly is this?" They said there's 8 continents and there's only 7, so I didn't even look at it because I thought it was like one of those either onion things or the Not Scott Jurek. Is that the Instagram post?
Right.
Um, but yeah, so I didn't even read it because I thought it was a joke.
Well, Adam, I think if you want to outdo Mike Mordian, I think this is your opportunity.
Well, how about we make our own continent and do this? Like, let's just say that like Hawaii is a continent, and then we can be good. Just keep.
Yeah, 9 in 9 days on 9 continents. It's kinda like what I say with the razors. Like, remember back in the day when we used to shave with razors that only had, like, 1 blade, and then they went up to 2, and then next thing you know, there was 3, and then 4. I just wondered why they didn't just skip to 7 or skip to the 5, like, right off the bat. Why are we going from 7 to 8 continents to 9? Let's just go whole hog and, like, get straight to 10 continents. If we're gonna do it big.
And bring Pluto back as a planet.
Well, my daughter overheard me say that, and she said it is a planet now, and she's in 2nd grade, so at least 2nd graders think it's a planet right now, so I'm not sure where we stand on that issue.
All right. The last topic I wanted to bring up, and this one I'm sure you've probably heard of before, Adam, but it was kind of new to me, is that there were 7 people on Monday who completed the Boston Double. And that is where runners will start in Boston at the finish line and run at 3 a.m. and run out to Hopkinton and then get there in time to join their official start time and then run the race back to get their official time. But they run the 56.4 miles on the day. There were 7 folks who did that this year. I'm sure you've probably heard of that and maybe even met a few.
So, funny story, on the way up there, I actually asked Katie if she thought there was a way I could get to the finish line at like 5 a.m. on Monday morning and run it, and then like run it backwards and then run the race. And I actually asked Woody, one of the other guys that we went up with, if he would do it with me. And he looked me dead in the eyes and said, "No way." So then I kind of like let it drop. But like, yeah, I've heard of people doing the double before. I even heard of people doing the Boston quad. So they start and they basically do it 4 times, ending like at the real finish line. So whatever that, however you do that, right? The finish to the start, start to finish, and then finish to the start, and then start to finish. So to get like the Boston 100. So yeah, there's some crazy people out there, but the one that you're talking about, it was actually sponsored by Mount to Coast, I saw. So they did it like as a group, sponsored by the shoe company, and I think they all ran out together, finished around 8 a.m., and then they had 2 hours to like sit around and wait for their wave, and then they went back. So yeah, I did hear about that. I think before the race on Monday.
Okay, and the thing that I found most impressive is they didn't do this like a normal ultra slack pace, walk in running mixed in. Like these guys, this team, they ran some legit times. Ian Sharman finished in 3:08:29 after running, the 26.2 out to the start. I mean, that's faster than my marathon PR. Lexi Jackson ran 3:26. John Kemp 3:28. Jason Burke ran 3:25 on the way out and then finished with 4:07 as his official time on the way back. Kelly Gillen ran 3:53. Gregory, I'm going to get this wrong, but Sutia ran 3:59, so broke 4 for his official race time afterwards. And then Steve Walters was just over 4 hours in 4 hours and 24 seconds. So they were not slacking with 26 miles on their legs when they ran the official race. So that's really impressive.
Yeah, I think most of those guys and girls were in that first wave, and there were like 8,000 people in that first wave. So it was pretty big this year. But yeah, so they were legit runners, going, especially going towards the start line. When you have like 5 miles to go, then you're basically going uphill. And that morning, you would have had a headwind going back towards the start line. So make it a little bit more challenging than it needs to be. But yeah, that sounds like something I would be interested in doing. So if Mount to Coast is listening and they want to sponsor me next year, I'm in. Okay.
Awesome. All right. Well, let's get to what we're really here to talk about today. And that is to talk about, yep, go ahead, Katie.
I'm sorry, I just had one extra note that my second grader came back in and wanted to make sure that I was 100% accurate, that her counselor told her that Pluto is a dwarf planet, just in case anybody's fact checking my 8-year-old.
And
All
the
right.
West Virginia educational system.
Right. So here we are. Dwarf planet, current status. All right. Now,
All right.
back to you, Chris.
I am definitely going to make sure there's a link in the show notes to the official status of Pluto.
We all need it, I think.
All right. So, Adam, back to why we're really here today, and that's to talk about your weekend in Boston. You and Katie left on Saturday morning, I believe. Got up there, had I'm sure, just an amazing time. What I'd like to do today is I've got some questions for you and for Katie on how that was for both of you. And if that's all right, I'll go ahead and jump right into it.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So let's start by talking about the morning of the race. What is it like for you getting to the athletes village? What most people probably don't know, or maybe they do, but maybe not, is that this is a race where you don't just show up for the starting line 10 minutes before, walk up to your spot and go, right? There's a whole process. So can you kind of walk through what that's like for you and for most of the runners?
So what's kind of funny, Chris, is that I actually do kind of get out of my car and walk about a half a mile right to the start line, unlike most of the people that morning. So probably about 95% of the 30,000 people that run Boston actually get on a bus in Boston. And then from there, they ride the bus all the way to Hopkinton. So it's a 26.2-mile bus ride. They ride basically parallel on the course, back to the start line. And if you're in the first wave, which goes off at 10 a.m., you must get on the bus, I think, by 7. And then it's about a 45-minute bus ride. So if all goes well, you are in Athletes Village, which is at the school in Hopkinton by 8 o'clock, which means you are sitting, standing, relaxing in a grass football field for about an hour and a half before you're allowed to actually go to like where your corrals are. So a lot of people bring throwaway shoes with them, throwaway socks, blankets, like what the heat shields, extra throwaway clothes. My morning is a little bit different than that. We actually stay in a hotel closer to Hopkinton. And then that morning, we drive in and we find a place close to park, and we park our car there. And we basically sit in the car until we're ready to go. So the road closes, I guess, at 6:30. So we still have to get there pretty early. But like it was 28 degrees on Monday morning. And instead of sitting outside in a field, we are in a heated car. So it's a pretty big advantage there. And, we're just relaxed. We're listening to music. We're talking to each other. We're trying to sleep. We're trying to relax. But we walked up to the start line at about 9:15. So about 45 minutes before the start, we walked up. We could have waited 15, 20 more minutes, but I kind of like to I like to start to feel the atmosphere a little bit. It gets me ready for the race. So I didn't want to wait too much longer. And when we walked up, we had to get through security, which was much, much tighter this year than in the past. So I was glad we left when we did. And leaving when we did also allowed Katie and Molly and Woody's two kids to go up and see the elite men, the elite women, the elite para athletes start. So I know they love that part. I mean, they probably like to see us start too, but I'm sure seeing the elite start, Katie will talk about that here in a minute, but I'm sure she enjoys that much more than seeing me start. She watches me run like every day, so it's not a big deal. But so anyway, like I said, our morning's a little bit different, but we got up there and I think I was in my corral for about 20 minutes before the race starts. And then you're just hanging out, standing, trying to stay warm, watching, the other runners come up and get in line next to you.
So, Katie, did you find that by doing that approach of parking there early and being within a short walking distance, did that make it a lot easier for you to actually get a front row or near front row seat to be able to watch the start and see the elites go off?
Yeah, it did. It's so nice. Like normally what happens is we park the car and the runners are just in the car hanging out, trying to get a little extra rest, staying warm, and I go do my running, like whatever I need to do, and I'll go run up to the start line. I'll run around. Last year and this year I got stuck on the opposite side of the street and had to ask like police like where exactly can I go? Because they start it it's a really quick turnaround to where the streets are just open and free and you could go wherever you want to when they start checking all bags coming through. You have to get a bracelet on for security. They zip tie all the gates and you can't get across just at any intersection. You have to go to specific ones and so it is real nice. It's cool to go up there beforehand and then it's cool to walk the athletes up. Now, I haven't gotten to do that every year cuz some years we are just jetting out from the start line to get into downtown Boston. But this year I got to see them. And at one point in time, when it was getting close to the elite men's start, I was like, okay, Adam, well, I'm going to go up to the start line now. So good luck. I'll see you later. And we did our little goodbyes. And I went up in time to see the elite men had already been brought out because they have a separate area. There's this area right across from where the public can stand and see the start. There's an area with heated tents and things for the elites and the para athletes. So they bring them out all at once. And the men were already there when we got to the start line. And this year we went right up. There might have been like one row of people up against the gates for at the start line. But Molly, who's Woody's wife, and her kids and I, we just kind of like nudged our way in. We didn't move anybody, but just like people kind of moved themselves and then we got right up against it. and the men started. So we saw the men warming up back and forth. They started, and then they said, okay, now it's time to lead the women. And we were standing exactly across from where they lead the elite women out. And it was so cool. I mean, my heart was actually pumping kind of hard because it was exciting. I don't know. I don't even fangirl that much over the elite runners, but it was really exciting to see them let out that way. And then they run back and forth to stay loose before their start goes off. And then they bring out their starter, and Des Linden was the starter of the women's elite race. So she
Awesome.
shot the gun for the women's elite and then came down and got in her own corral and that went off what? Let's see, I think they went off at 9:47, so 13 minutes later, she was in a wave running her own Boston Marathon, so it was really cool. And of course, the para athletes started in between the elite women and wave 1, and one of our athletes that were with us was actually running in the para division, so that was really cool.
Awesome.
Hey, Chris, hold on before we go any further. So while Katie is like watching these like extreme, athletes getting ready to go, these elite guys and girls, like I'm probably 300 feet back trying to decide if I should pee in this bottle I have with me or not. Like that's my excitement, right? I'm like, I'm getting ready to race and she's like fangirling over these people, right? And I'm like, do I pee in this bottle or do I hold it? Do I pee in this bottle? Like that's my decision making at the time.
Well,
That's how it is for me in
was
the
think
corral.
But then, if I can take this a little bit further, the after right before the main wave starts is when they do the national anthem, and that always is a little emotional before, any event that I run, but at this big event, they'd have the national anthem, I get a little emotional with that, and then they do a flyover with the jet, that's always really, really cool right before the start, and, this year, based on the time, we had an athlete with us that was also in the car that wasn't starting until 11, and that's the latest since I've been coming up to Boston and helping with the runners that run for CVAC, that's the latest any of our runners have ever started, I believe. So, he wasn't gonna come up at the same time as those who were starting in wave 1. So, we were gonna leave a little later than what we normally would, so we did get to see Woody start and all the guys who were starting in wave 1. I had my video running and because it's so strange, once it starts, all the waves start coming and it's just thousands and thousands of people coming through. And you don't know if you're gonna get to see your runner or not, but I thought from previous experience and Adam knowing which side of the road I was on, I figured he would be on the way to the left side of the corral, and he was. He saw me before I saw him, so I got a little video of him starting, and that was nice because we'll get to it later. That's most of what I get to see of Adam running the Boston Marathon. So,
Right. So, Adam, this was Boston number 7 for you. Let's get it out of the way. How did you do? What was your time? And how does it compare to previous years?
Yeah, so I ran 2:57:25, which is 6:46 per mile. And this was my third fastest Boston out of the seven. So pretty close in 2022. I ran 2:57:12. If I would have known that, remembered that while I was running, I might have tried to pick it up just a little bit so I could have had my second fastest at one point. But I was extremely happy with the way the race happened. I know the first half I went out in 1:27:47, and then the second half I ran 1:29:38. So a little bit of a positive split, but that usually does happen at Boston. But yeah, I was happy with my third fastest time.
Excellent. Yeah. I mean, a positive split at Boston is almost to be expected, right? Because you start with the long downhill at the beginning, and then you finish on that second half with the Newton Hills. And I'm sure we'll talk about that in a little more detail as we go through, but they don't call it Heartbreak Hill for nothing, right?
Yeah, exactly. There's plenty of people who you pass if you run the race correctly while you're going up Heartbreak Hill.
All right. And I assume this is a Boston qualifier, right? You met your mark, you met the standard.
Yeah, so for 40 to 44 male, my standard is 3:05. So I beat that by 7 minutes and 35 seconds. Yep.
Excellent. So We'll wait to see what the buffer is, but I assume that means we'll be going back next year?
Well, I actually my Marine Corps time from October was 2:52:29. So I would assume a 12 and a half minute buffer is enough. If not, then I will bow out gracefully to the Boston runners of 2027. That's for sure, you know?
Fair enough. For those of us who have much smaller buffers, we hope you are correct.
Yeah. I hope so too. I hope more people get in that are closer to that buffer, you know?
Yeah. So, all right. Well, hey, walk us through how the race developed for you. I assume you had at least a little bit of a race plan, having this be with this being your seventh time. Did you do you break the course into sections, or do you run it mile by mile? Like, what are you thinking about as you're running it? And talk through that a little bit.
Yeah, so my race plan is basically feel out the first 5 miles. I've learned over the course of the 7 Bostons that going down the hills at the start, it's not worth trying to dodge in and out of people. The cool thing about Boston is you are with people who have the same exact qualifying time as you, basically. So everybody around you should be relatively like the same running ability if they came in fresh, give or take some people. But I know my first couple years, and we'll talk about this later, I kind of dodged a lot. Um, so I usually pick the middle of the road, and I just try to stay as much in the middle as I can for the first 5 miles and just kind of feel it out and see how I'm doing. And I get to that first 5 mile mark, and then I literally said out loud to myself, today's gonna be a good day. Like I felt good. I was hitting my splits. I did have to stop and pee at like mile 4.8. So for those of you keeping track, that means I did not pee in the bottle in the corral earlier. So, but I still ran a 6:58 for that mile. So once I hit that, I was like, okay, today's going to be a good day. I actually said that out loud like 2 or 3 times. And then from there, my next goal was to make it to mile 10, still feeling good. Back in 2019, when I had my toughest Boston, when I got to 10, like for some reason my legs just shut down. So that's always like another goal. If I get to 10 and I'm feeling good, then I feel good about the day. And then from there it's 2 miles to one of the loudest parts on the course, the Wesley College part. And then another mile is halfway. And I always tell myself at Boston, just run relaxed until 13. So if I'm like basically bored and not sweating too much and I still feel really good at 13, then I then I go, all right, 3 miles to the bottom of the hill, and then it's 5 miles of hills, and you just have to do whatever you can to get over those hills. And I try so hard now to not have a mile above 7 minutes at Boston, and I had 1 mile on Heartbreak Hill that was 7:01, and that I was so mad for like 30 seconds, and then I was like, "All right, just let it go." And then I just try to go. Whatever I have left the last 5 miles is so I guess what I'm trying to say in a long-winded way is I break the course down basically into 5 mile sections. There's like little checkpoints along the way, but now being 7 years in, I know what's coming. So it's a little easier for me to do that, but it's basically 5 mile sections for me.
So, Katie, we touched on this a little bit, but I want to dive in a little bit deeper. Boston is notoriously difficult for spectators because there are just so many people there to watch the race. Walk me through your scouting strategy for the day, and how do you decide where you're going to try to see Adam, and how much of your day was spent, like, trying to navigate between spots?
Well, the thing about Boston is I don't really get to see Adam on the course at all. And if true story, the first year I went to Boston, we were with the same group we go with every year, but somebody else had always been in charge of driving from the start line into Boston, finding parking, doing all the things that I have to do now. So I was just kind of like there to help. Little did I know I was kind of an understudy at the time because it's turned into basically my job now. But when I found out that I would not see Adam on the course at all, I literally cried in the hotel room. I was like, "Adam, I don't get to see you." Like, I didn't know that that was part of it. So what happens is if I'm lucky if I get to see him at the start line, actually start the race. Then we head straight into Boston, into downtown, because it gets crazy down there on Boylston where the home stretch is. And at the finish line, it is sometimes impossible to get to. The better the weather, the worse it is for me personally, because we'll go straight from the start line to the finish line, and there will just be rows and rows of people already on Boylston. The wheelchair athletes, by the time I can even get down there from the first wave starting, the top wheelchair athletes are usually in, number 1 and number 2 at least. I can get down there in time for the men's winner under normal circumstances, but it's a popular thing. It is craziness. The energy and the roar of the crowd. You can almost, even if you can't see because you're rows back, you know when the winners are coming, especially because the roar just starts down at the, what is it? uh, right on
Sure,
Hereford,
sure.
left on Boylston
Yeah.
or something like that. So when they turn onto Boylston, you can almost hear just the roar start at one end and come down with them. It's amazing. A couple years ago though, our friend Sarah was on the like went out there way early. She just went straight to the finish line and she told me to come meet her. I was just gonna sit in like a coffee shop somewhere and stay warm and not even worry about it. But she told me to come meet her, so I came and stand with her, and we were on the front row. I actually got to see Adam finish, and that was last year. But I've never seen him run part of Boston ever before that because getting from place to place, finding parking, that would be tough. Also, knowing where you're going. Most people are from out of town. If you're riding the T, you would really kinda have to have a clear understanding of where you had to go, have that all mapped out, and that's just not part of the day that I have, because what my job is to get the people to the start, get into the finish line, and be there when they come out of the athlete's chute, like the finish chute, which takes about 15 to 20 minutes under normal circumstances from the time they finish to when they come out into the family meetup area. I have all their bags, all their stuff so they can get warm, changed, get whatever fuel they need. So if they didn't run with their cell phones are in their bag. So that's my job on the day of Boston is really truly get them started and then meet them with their stuff afterwards. And the in between all happens. I get to track them. Every once in a while I get to see some people finish. Last year I did get to see all the women like probably top 10 finish. I waited for Adam to come in. That was a really cool year, but that's just not part of the deal most of the years that I've done this.
Chris, I was gonna say to give you an idea of like how difficult it is for spectators. So my sister and brother-in-law have come and watched a couple of years, and now I think every year since 2021, maybe even every year, all 7 years, my aunt and uncle have come from Springfield, Massachusetts, and they drive down and they bring their twin daughters. And then this year they brought their friend Bryn, who's never been to a marathon before. So that was pretty cool. But they actually come in and they get to about mile 23 and a half, and then they just stand there and wait all morning for me. And then I'm like, I run miles 22 and a half to 23 and a half, basically just looking for them. And so because I want to be able to go over there and like give them high fives when I see them. And then from there, they leave and go get something to eat, and then they come back to our hotel. Like in the past, they've tried to get to the finish line and come see me like after I finish, and it's just not worth it. So it's not like Marine Corps where you can see somebody 4 or 5 different times and go, across the street and see somebody. This is like you see them once and you probably won't see them again until 2 hours later.
Amazing, amazing. So Katie, I think you mentioned this, but so do you just spend all morning kind of following the tracking app to see where the different athletes are and so that you're ready when they come in?
Yeah, I have them all tracking. So the BAA has their own app, and you load the current year's results and you load all the numbers or the names of the people that you're watching. Now, a key for me is I turn off the notifications on everyone but Adam and maybe one or two other people that I really want to know, because otherwise the notifications, if you're following multiple, like if you're following 5 or more people, the notifications become extremely overwhelming. But I just turn them off for everybody because I can look at them anytime I want and check on them. You can even bring up a map view where it will have a little icon with each person's initials so you can kind of see where they are. So I just tracked where the first people were this year, and then where Adam was. We actually stayed because I was with Molly and the kids, and Woody was gonna be the first runner of our group to finish, so I was like, "Well, I guess we can stay and watch him finish," because last year I stayed, watched Adam finish. As soon as he went by me, I got all my stuff, like, any bags that I needed to carry, and got around to the family meetup area. Now, I should make it clear for listeners, it's not an easy task to get from one place to the other. It's actually like you have to find an exit, you have to get out and then go up a couple blocks, left a few blocks, and then back down. I mean, it's like it's not real obvious where this family meetup area is. But after doing it a few years, I feel very comfortable with finding it. But even doing it the last 5 years, I stopped and asked somebody who was one of the police officers that was a volunteer because I didn't wanna waste time walking the wrong way. I think I got off course a little bit with my, answer here, but what I was gonna say was that my main concern is being there for the athletes, so I track them, but when it's not always 100%. Sometimes it's a little behind, and so you really gotta be watching for them even when, because I was watching for Des to come in. I'm a big Des fan, and she was just like a minute ahead of Woody, and somehow I missed her because I was tracking it. I'm like, "Okay, don't try to get up at where you can see, like, too soon," because there was a ton of people, right? But I missed her because the tracker, I thought she was just a little bit further back than what she was. I thought Woody was a little bit further back than what he was. But so we stayed, and by the time we got around to the family zone, the line to get in, if you had bags, which I had all the athletes' bags, and Molly had some too for her group, the line was at least a block long. I had never seen that before. I had never had any trouble. The year before, I saw Adam come by, grab the bags, went back around, made it in time to where he comes out of the chute to meet him, to pick him right out of the crowd and be like, "Hey, you don't have to go meet me anywhere. I'm right here." Right? This time, Woody was already standing at they have letters, so we always meet at the C, and he was already standing there calling Molly, freezing because the wind whips right through there and there was no sun at that time. And we're in line, like, we had maybe made it a quarter to half of the way up of the line. It was taking forever. The security, just like Adam mentioned at this, like, getting to the start line, was more strict than they had been in years past. Oh my gosh, the bag check was just as bad or worse, and it was we couldn't even get in. So we just dropped the bags off to the side with Molly, and I went in. If you didn't have a bag, you could get right in, and I had to go intercept all our runners and send them out to Molly to get their bags and dry clothes and stuff. So that was a little hairy this year, so.
So, Adam, I was going to ask you about the weather. No two Bostons, right, ever have the same weather. When I ran my Boston in 2012, the temperatures were 78 at the start and went up from there. I don't think you experienced that this year. So, were there any issues this year with the weather? Did you have to adjust anything on the fly or anything like that?
No, for me, the weather was great. It was, I think, 38 when we started. We had a slight tailwind. I mean, it's not perfect. Every once in a while, the wind hits you a little bit, but it felt really good. I started with gloves just because we were standing around for about 40 minutes, and then I think I ran 2 miles with gloves and then I tossed them. I did have arm sleeves. I kept those on the entire race, and it was mainly because when I ran Wilmington earlier in the year, I dropped my arm sleeves off, like, basically right in front of the hotel that we were staying at, figuring I would pick them up later, but somebody came and cleaned them up for me, not knowing obviously that I had planned to come back and get them. So I really just didn't want to lose another pair of arm sleeves. So I think I would have been fine without them after about 10 miles, but I ended up keeping them on the entire time. I just pulled them down a little bit, but yeah, so I had shorts and a singlet on, and I felt great in that. It was really, really good weather. I've run it where it's been really warm, like you said, before, but yeah, we were really lucky on Monday, that's for sure, with the weather we got.
Right. So now that the adrenaline has faded, is there any specific memory from this race that you'll freeze frame in your memory and take with you, or
So
anything stand out?
so this is like these are like the dumb things that I remember during a race. And I told Katie this story. So when I started, I put my cyst gel in my arm sleeve. So I tucked it in there. And then I had 3 honey stinger gels. So I put one in my right pocket, one in my left pocket, and then carried another one. Okay. So I get about 2 miles in, and I realized that the one in my left pocket had fallen out. So now I'm a gel short, right? And I already probably should have had another gel or two, but I take usually one gel every 5 miles, and then the last one is that cyst gel. So being a gel short, I know though that on the course there's Morton gels. I don't care for Morton gels. No offense. If they want to sponsor me, let's talk. But if I'm in a bind, then I'm gonna I'm gonna get something else. But so I know that these are gonna be available around mile 9, I think, 16, wherever. But around mile 9, I think I'm running in the middle of the road, still following my plan to stay in the middle of the road. And we come up to a Morton aid station, and there are people on both sides of me. It's still really crowded. There's not much room to maneuver. If you want to go to the side and get water, I usually like point and I'm looking. It's like when you're driving in rush hour traffic, you want to make sure you're not going to trip anybody or get tripped up. Anyway, so I'm still in the middle of the road, and I look over and there's a line of people just handing out Morton gels. So I lock eyes with a girl about 8 people up, and I just start waving my hand in the air. And she looks at me, and then she throws the Morton gel to me from the side of the road. And in full stride, I caught it with 2 hands and just kept running. It was like one of the most athletic moments of my life. So, like, yeah, it was pretty good.
So, Adam, all of that training that you do when you're getting ready for JFK and you're trying to catch leaves on the towpath, it's paid off.
I didn't even think about that, but you're right. I do that for our listeners, right? When I'm running on the towpath in the fall, when there are leaves coming down, I run by and I try to catch those leaves. Chris, how did I not put two and two together? That's what I've been doing this whole time.
It was training for that moment.
Yeah. But hey, so that was great. That was fun. And that was like, right after I had been telling myself, all right, today's gonna be a good day. It's always good when I'm having fun and running, like that I know it's gonna be a good race. If I would have ran a 3:02, like it wouldn't have been the end of the world, right? Like I was having fun while running, and that's like what's important. So the other, like the real, I guess, thing that I'll remember is my aunt and uncle and their family being at mile 23, because like I know that Katie can't be on the course. I know if she could, she'd be at mile 5, 10, 15, 20 the entire way. But like, so I look forward to seeing her at the finish line. But anytime it gets tough, I go, okay, I just got to make it to mile 23. And I have family there and they're going to be cheering for me, and I just got to get to that point. So it's always fun to have something to look forward to, and just to get to there. So that'll be the other thing that I really remember from the race.
Katie, I want to ask you the same question or similar question. Was there any like moment during the race or during the while you're waiting at the end there that kind of stuck out to you that you'll remember and take away? I mean, I saw a video of, that neither one of you probably noticed, but apparently there was some guy standing on a post at like mile 16 or something, and he was wearing nothing but a Speedo, and he had a sign covering himself up that said, "Run faster or I drop the sign." I don't know if you saw anything like that, Katie, but
No,
anything you
unfortunately, I
remember?
miss all the good stuff out on the course since I don't get to spend much time on the course, just at the finish line, but, I I wasn't front row this year, but last year, I can tell a story that it was one of those things that you see put on Facebook or any of the social media outlets that are a reel of a runner, but I saw it was happening right in front of me, and I was like, this runner was just losing his legs. They were just buckling out from underneath him, and I know the same thing happened this year, I just couldn't see it as well, but this was, like, front row seat, and he ended up falling, and everybody in the crowd around us that once they saw him, they were yelling for him and encouraging him, and it was touching to see other athletes stop running towards their finish line and help this person to their like, it took one person trying to pull him up, trying to get him up, they got him up, and then came back down because the person could not almost they just basically couldn't have any weight on their legs at that point in time, and then a second runner would stop, and they'd get him up, and they finally got this runner to the finish line, and I just am so touched by that. I did see reels of that happening again this year, so I just think that's such an awesome thing for other people to give up. Maybe they were trying to, you know, break a certain a PR or a goal that they had, similar to what you were saying last week, Chris, that you had stopped to check on that runner who had fallen down. So that's just what we do, and it's touching to see that not only are people accomplishing these big things, but they're willing to put themselves out to help their other fellow runners get to the end. And then one other thing that really sticks out to me, it actually was after all of our athletes were finished. Because it was kind of chilly and the athletes were finishing in such varied times, from the first person finishing to our last runner finishing, we took everyone back to the car, and then I came back to get our final runner. And our final runner was Dave, and when I got him, he was just calm but so happy. And he told me on the walk back to the car, which was like point 0.3 or point 0.4 miles, it was less than half a mile from where I picked him up at. And he just talked, it was his first Boston. Adam, do you remember how old he is? In his 60s?
62, I think.
So he's running his first Boston. It's only his 7th marathon, I think, ever. But he just told himself he wanted to do this. Mike Spindler told him that that was something he really should do. He needed to experience it. So here he was. He qualified. He's running Boston. He just finished, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm really happy with my time. I'm getting a knee replacement 4 weeks from today, and I just wanted to be able to do this, and I just am so happy that I got the opportunity, and this was the run of a lifetime." And he was just so calm and joyous about how big of an opportunity this was and how big of an experience. And it was just enough to make me be like, oh my gosh, I have to run this. I have to figure out a way. Like, it is as excited and emotional as I've seen Adam, and as excited as everyone is coming out of the chute and all the crowd and everything. I go back and forth, but just his little simple but honest recount of what he had just been through was just amazing. So that's the one thing that I really keep coming back to from this particular Boston.
What a great story. I mean, that's something that'll stick with all of us, I think, but I'm really glad you got to have that opportunity to experience that. All right, Adam, I want to switch gears a little bit. We've talked about this year's race, but you're a 7-time finisher, and I'd like to know if you could go back and tell your first Boston Marathon self something about the race, what do you think they would be surprised by?
Well, that's a good question, Chris. First thing I can tell you is that little punk would not listen to me right now anyway. So he surely knew everything about running. which is why he ran a 3:01:15 and not a sub 3, right? So that was my fifth marathon ever, right? And I went from, I had only done Marine Corps before that. So each year, so four Marine Corps in 4 years, and I had run 358, 324, like 256 or something, and then 254. So when I ran Boston in 2014, I knew I had the marathon figured out, right? Like that. So being myself now, right? I would tell that 2014 Adam getting ready for his first Boston not to blow down the first 4 miles of downhills and just to soak it all in, right? Like I remember being out there and just hating running, right? Like that marathon was just, it wasn't what I anticipated it would be, right? Like I thought the marathon was going to be so easy in Boston, and basically what it comes down to is that Adam did not respect the distance or the course, right? And that's, so I guess that would be my advice to that young Adam, would just be, hey, respect the course, respect the distance, and then like smile, right? Like if it goes bad, just have fun. That's probably what I would tell them.
Cool. Along a similar vein, I want to talk about training. You've trained for 7 Bostons now. What's one part of your routine that you know absolutely works and is sacred to you? And then is there anything that maybe you were doing early on that you've learned, I don't need to do that anymore?
So I think what part is like sacred would just be being consistent. Like you have to run, right? Katie and I talk about this. If you want to get better at running, you have to run, right? There's other things that you can do to help you out, but if you want to get better at running, you have to run. So that's probably been like my biggest thing over the last 12 years, 16 years in this journey, right? Is that like I try to run every day. I try to be consistent with what I'm doing as far as that goes. I could probably add some things in that would help a little bit, right? But I think that's probably the biggest thing that's remained, is just being consistent each day. The one thing that I realized I was doing wrong early on, I probably still do this a little bit, but I know in 2019 when I was running Boston and I got to mile 10. And like I said earlier, the wheels fell off and I knew it was going to be a long 16 miles. I looked around and like I started comparing myself to the other runners during the race. And I remember specifically one guy that I knew passed me during the race. And I literally got so mad and I was like, how is this guy passing me? He's not better than me. Like what is going on and why? Like, so it was just the wrong attitude, right? Like, and now I know that guy and he's run like a 2:25 marathon. He's obviously way better than I am. But so, but I remember back then he was just starting, right? And I was like, well, his marathon time is not what mine was, so I should be up there with him. But yeah, I would say I just wasn't having fun for a little bit, and I was taking it a little bit too seriously and comparing myself to other people.
All right. One more quick question for you. Everybody talks about Heartbreak Hill. You've now had the opportunity to do it 7 times. Have you changed your approach to how you approach Heartbreak Hill, or do you embrace it now, or does it still just kind of intimidate you?
No, I definitely embrace it. That's one of the goals. One of the goals is to get to the top of Heartbreak Hill and still feel as good as you can that point in the race after those 4.5 miles of hills. But once you get to the top of Heartbreak Hill, it is 98% downhill from there.
I have a question for Adam. How has your Scream Tunnel at Wesley College approach changed from maybe your first year running to current?
Okay. So for the people that may not know what Katie's talking about, at mile 12 and a half ish, well, I was probably 12. There's the Wesley College. It's an all girls college. And They are just unbelievably loud. Let me put it that way. You can hear them when you are a quarter mile away or further. And when you run by them, like it's ear piercing. It really is loud. They scream that entire time. But anyway, they hold signs that some of them are offering up kisses or hugs or whatever. But if you go look on YouTube, you can find like the Wesley Scream Tunnel, and runners will stop and kiss the girls at Wesley College. So in 2014, my very first one, I didn't really know what this was, so I just ran by it. And when I went back in 2019, I kinda knew that, like, Boston was not a bucket list thing, but, like, something that would happen every once in a while just because of, like, how much it costs, and you never know if you're gonna get to qualify again. So I told myself, like, if I started to have a bad day, I would do all the Boston things. So when I got to mile 10 and I started feeling bad, I made a decision that when I got to Wesley College, I would pick a girl that was holding a sign that said, like, "Kiss me," whatever, that I would stop and give her a kiss. So at mile 12 in 2019, that's what I did. I was running and I saw this girl. I don't know if she was cute. I don't know what color her hair was. I don't know nothing, but I stopped and
Not now you don't.
I stopped, I gave her a kiss, and then I kept running. So,
Okay, so
any other
pause.
questions, Katie?
So at that time, just shortly after that is when we became friends. And you told me this same story, like this same thing that you just told me, or just told our listeners, you told me. And I'm like, oh, wow, like, Adam seems like this really good guy and he's married. And I can't believe that he kissed a girl? Like, he just doesn't seem like I can't believe he kissed a girl at the race. I bet she didn't know that. Like, I just over and over in my head, I could not put these things together because of how Adam seemed to me as my new friend. And then and because we were just coworkers and becoming friends at that point in time. And then for this story to come out, I was just like, Okay, well, that's interesting because I just didn't imagine that would be the case." Okay, fast forward years later, and Adam and I are dating, engaged maybe, I don't know, like, this is years later, and he's going back to Boston, and he's saying, "I'm gonna run," and I'm like, "But you kissed a girl at Wesley." He's like, "Yeah, she kissed me on the cheek," and I'm like, "What?" My whole like, for years, I believed Adam's on course making out, or at least not really making out, but, like, giving a random stranger girl a kiss during the Boston Marathon on the lips. That's obviously what went through my head, and, essentially, it was just a kiss on the cheek, and I'm like, "Oh, well, that's dumb." Like, that's not even juicy. That's like
Yeah, well, you didn't ask for, like, specific you think I would put my lips on another girl's lips? I don't know where they've been. That's gross.
Well, yes,
Like,
that's what I expected from you, Adam, from what I knew then and what I know now, but the story at the time, just couldn't believe it, but I wasn't like, it wasn't any of my business what you did at the Boston Marathon, so I just
well,
but what you said now is who you are as a person, which is why it was so surprising for me.
for the listeners, I was having such a bad race that day. I also stopped at mile 21 and drank a Bud Light with a kid from Boston College. So that sounds more like me, I know. But
Definitely.
I I was doing all the Boston things in Boston, right?
Everybody deserves that experience, I think.
All right, Adam. The last question I was gonna ask, I've got to modify now because the I was gonna ask you for the number one piece of advice you would give a new Boston Marathon runner, but I know now that that is don't kiss the girl on the lips at Wesley. You don't know where they've been. So, what is the second piece of advice you would give a new runner at Boston?
It would honestly be to have fun and just soak up the experience. And you can do that racing, and you can do it like if you just want to go out there and celebrate that the fact that you qualified and you're there. I have a ton of fun on the course. I make sure, if I'm feeling good, I go out wide and give high fives to kids. And, it does make a difference. My nieces came into the hotel room and they made signs for me and the other racers. And one of them said, like, tap here for power. And it was like the Mario mushroom, and they specifically told me that 56 people had smacked their sign. So these are, Katie, help me out here. Fact check me, 12-year-old girls, 14-year-old girls.
14.
14, right? And they counted how many people smacked their sign along the way. So, like, they're going to remember that for a while, you know? So I try to go out wide and high five little kids and, smack some signs, make sure I hit the signs and not like some old lady or something. But, it's a lot of fun. That's my number one advice is have fun and enjoy it. The crowds are amazing. They lined the streets the entire way, playing music, screaming, just encouraging everyone. Yeah, it's an amazing experience.
If I ever get to experience it, I mean, if I ever can qualify, that's the way I wanna do it. Of course, goals change. My goals change daily sometimes, but as far as an experience, I wanna be able to take it all in because unfortunately, I'm somebody who, like, kinda puts my head down and always has a time goal, and I'm just trying to get to it, and I feel like I don't get to experience, like, the atmosphere as much, but especially the sights. I don't stop and take pictures. I look around a little bit sometimes, but I feel like sometimes I just have my head down and I don't notice what's around me enough. But if I ever get the chance to run Boston, that's when I wanna, like, take it all in for sure.
Yeah, well, thanks, guys. This has been just such a fun conversation. You both have me like fired up to go look and find another marathon to sign up for, so that I can work on my buffer and get my Boston qualifying time down a little bit. But before we wrap up, are there any last words either one of you would like to share with our listeners on either your experience or the Boston experience in general, whether it was this year or over the last several years?
I would say if you're gonna crew and meet your people at the finish line, be prepared for the crowds, be prepared for bag checks. I didn't get to say this earlier, but invest in a clear backpack because it makes everything so much easier. So that's just a little hint. But also know that you have an important job. I can't tell you how much I was thanked this year, and all I felt like I did was drive a car from one place to another and carry a bunch of bags. But the runners truly, truly appreciated having their stuff at the end, having someone to meet. They didn't have to worry about how they were going to get back to the hotel or anything like that. So, whether you're out on the course, just at the start line, just at the finish line, I know the people you're there for, and even a lot of strangers will be appreciative of it. And if you ever get the chance, do it because it is a lot of fun.
Chris, all that talking, I forgot what the question was.
Anything you wanna leave
Final
our
thoughts.
listeners with? Final thoughts.
Oh, so yeah, again, I think you have to go out there and have fun if you're gonna run Boston, and nothing beats that turn, the left turn on Boylston, and it's 8 people deep on both sides of the road, and it's just extremely loud, and that just gets you fired up. You got a half mile to go, and there's people everywhere. So I just wanted to touch on that real quick, just to make sure that the crowds are amazing, the experience is amazing. And I will say this, Katie's job at Boston is way harder than the runner's job. I talked about that on the last episode, but just to reiterate that, like the crew definitely has a much more difficult job than the runner. That's for sure. So hats off to her again for getting everybody out there and safely and back home safely. So I can't wait to go back to Boston April 19th, 2027 for one more round.
You know, Adam was talking about doing all the Boston things, and I don't know if as crew I get to do the Boston things quite as much, but what I did do is after the race when everyone was back in the car and we were trying to get back to the hotel, usually it's fairly smooth sailing 2 years ago, we got really gridlocked and it was very, very stressful. But I figured out a few things about where to park and how to leave Boston so we don't get into that type of situation with all the road closures and everyone trying to get out the same direction. However, we were at one intersection and it was a four-way stop and people were just blocking the intersection and not letting me out and then not following the rules of the road with a four-way stop. So, I'll be darned, I did the most Boston thing I could think of and laid on my horn because Boston is the honkinest city I've ever been in. And I had a little bit of road rage, but I very soon calmed down, got through the intersection, and all was well. So that was my very Boston moment of the whole trip.
Hey, Chris, I remembered my original answer to your question that I just forgot the question. So I was gonna say this, at, like, mile 14 to 16 is usually, like, my, like, tough part of the race. Especially at Boston, like I said earlier, I go 5, 10. I have it, like, mapped out in my head, and then you pass the Wesley Girls College, and then you're past the halfway point. So now and then the hills start at 16, so 13 to 16, there's not much to look forward to, right? You're just running. Not that the crowds aren't great, but for me, there's no milestone there. But when it got tough, I was just thinking, this is way better than any mile I ran at Capitol. So I could be at Capitol right now, or I could just continue running the Boston Marathon. So then I started thinking, maybe I don't want to do Capitol again. So at this point now, I have no idea. Like I I went back and forth in my head during those 3 miles like 20 times. I was thinking, I would rather get to the finish line and then have to race back to the start line than run Capital again. So we'll see what happens. I'm sure I'll change my mind here in like a couple days again, like I always do. But I just thought that was a pretty funny moment that like what just happened 3 weeks ago was kind of what pulled me through those 2 to 3 like challenging miles mentally.
Isn't that funny? Like, I don't even know, right? Like, it's amazing what goes through our heads, right, when we get into those tough parts of races and, you know, but at the end, we always find a way to dig ourselves out of those holes and get on to the next challenge. So, I'm glad
Yeah.
you had that experience to fall back on, but I hope our listeners will not take away that the backyard format is terrible and no one should do it because we need to keep doing those.
That's right. The last thing I have, I promise, is that like I remembered something you said last week, and that was like you didn't want to let people down during your race. And I feel that when I go run these races too. And like not that I'm gonna let someone down, right? Like it's my running and it's my journey but I do know that there's people that were like following me. So every single time I passed like a timing mat, right? I get a little lift, right? And I'm like, okay, good. Everybody knows I'm safe. Everybody knows I just passed the 5K mark, right? And then you run and then all of a sudden you're at the next timing mat and you're like, okay, cool. Like if anybody's checking up on me, they know I'm still on pace, they know I'm still doing well. They probably think I peed at mile 5 because I did, right? And then like you're going, right? But that really does, keep you honest with those types of things to where, there's a timing mat, a checkpoint, and I kind of get like a little bit of pride when you go by there and you're still feeling good. And, like I know Katie's like, okay, good, he's on pace, he's good, and and that really does help out.
Well, I'll tell you, Adam, I was sitting at my computer at work watching those. And for anybody who hasn't, actually logged on to the app and looked at the splits that they give, Boston gives some amazing detail on the splits. And when you get to mile 23, they start going by mile down to the finish. And so I'm sitting there watching my watch, silently yelling at the computer, "Come on, Adam, I know you can do a 6:46 here." And when it's not updating as fast as, real time actually probably was happening, you're like, then I start getting into a little bit of nervous mode, like, oh no, what happened? And then I'm like F5, 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 refreshing on my screen, trying to get that computer to catch up. So yeah, you definitely had a lot of folks back here who were rooting you on and following along throughout the day. I know our friends Mike and Megan were watching for you on TV and in the live coverage. And so yeah, I'm glad you got to be there, but it was also fun for us back here to be able to follow along and track your progress.
Yeah, I appreciated the fact that when I got back to my phone, I had, I think, 80 group text messages to sift through, and all the other group messages that I'm a part of. So, it's pretty exciting to have people that care about what you're doing and follow along your journey. So, I think the first thing I wrote in the group was F this. And I think I meant like the marathon, and Matt Hardy replied back with, "What, did they run out of beer?" So you guys know me well. I appreciate it, but
Well, guys, this has been a ton of fun this week. I've really enjoyed it, and like I said, I'm like all fired up now. So when we log off here, I'm probably going to go start searching for a marathon. So
okay, cool. Hey,
with
start
that,
start at tulorunco.com and look at Lock to Lock, okay?
okay, all right, I'll check that out. Maybe.
Buzz Sawyer opens on the 1st, May 1st.
May 16th,
May 16th?
Buzz Sawyer's birthday.
Oh, yeah, May 16th.
Oh,
Whoopsies.
Yeah.
nice.
All right. Hey, Chris, thanks for hosting us. We appreciate it.
Yeah,
All
thanks,
right.
Yes,
Katie.
thank you.
All right. I appreciate everybody who's listened so far, and we will see you guys. Talk to you next week, okay? Katie, you are beautiful.
Thank you.
Got it. That's all for today's episode of Tales on the Towpath. Thanks for joining us on another run down memory lane and along the C&O. If you've enjoyed the show, be sure to follow, share it with a friend, and leave us a review. Until next time, keep your pace steady and your stories flowing.